As the story begins, we see a man injecting a mysterious green liquid into the yolk of an egg. Moments later, the egg yolk splits into one or two, symbolizing the start of something extraordinary. The scene then shifts, and we are introduced to a rising star, Elizabeth Sparkle. Elizabeth is a stunningly beautiful model and the beloved host of a popular show. In the early stages of her fame, people would flock to Elizabeth for selfies and autographs, mesmerized by her allure. However, as time passed, the attention started to fade. Slowly but surely, the once adored star began to lose her shine. Her popularity plummeted, and people no longer sought her out. The glittering aura that surrounded Elizabeth Sparkle began to dim, leaving her feeling abandoned and forgotten. Fast forward to years later, and Elizabeth, now in her 50s, continues to host the same show. Although time has changed her, she still holds on to the remnants of her past success. One day, after filming her show, Elizabeth heads to the restroom, only to find that the ladies' room is closed. Desperate, she enters the men's restroom, where she unexpectedly encounters the show's director. He's deep in conversation, discussing the future of the show. Elizabeth is no longer the star she once was, he says, his voice filled with concern. Where her presence once brought high ratings, now the TRPs are dropping. It's time for a change, he continues, expressing his need for a new, younger, and more beautiful host. These words cut through Elizabeth like a knife. The beauty she once took pride in had faded, and with it, her career. She stares at her reflection in the mirror, overwhelmed by the sight of the wrinkles that now mark her face. Unable to accept this, Elizabeth confronts the director, but his response is blunt. "I can't help you, Elizabeth. The show depends on its audience, and they want beauty. Unfortunately, you're no longer the face of that." Devastated, Elizabeth walks away, her heart heavy. She drives away from the hotel, the director's harsh words echoing in her mind. Distracted by her own thoughts, she loses focus on the road, and before she can react, a car comes crashing into hers. The accident is severe, but against all odds, Elizabeth emerges unscathed. Remarkably, she's unharmed, a stroke of good fortune amidst the chaos. After being discharged from the hospital, as Elizabeth pulls her coat on, she discovers a hidden message, subtly left for her. What does it mean? What lies ahead for Elizabeth Sparkle? "This changed my life." Along with the message, there was a drive labeled "The Substance." Intrigued, Elizabeth returned home. Her curiosity piqued. She immediately inserted the drive into her computer, revealing information about a mysterious fluid known as the Substance. This substance had magical properties, capable of reversing the aging process. It could transform an older person into a younger version of themselves. But there was a catch. In addition to the fluid that granted youth, another substance was required to stabilize both versions of the body, the old and the new. This process was not easy, yet it wasn't impossible either. The key to using the substance was to activate both versions of the body every 7 days. To maintain the younger body, Elizabeth would need to inject a special fluid into it daily, extracted from the spine of the old body. When one body was activated, the other would fall unconscious. At first, Elizabeth dismissed this as a ridiculous lie. She discarded the flash drive in the trash, convinced it was nothing more than an illusion. But as the night wore on, the loneliness and sadness overwhelmed her. She found herself staring at a picture of her youthful self, remembering the days when she was admired and desired. In that moment, her resolve crumbled. Desperate to reclaim her lost beauty, she retrieved the drive from the trash and sent a message to the number provided, asking to order the substance. The person on the other end didn't say much. He simply asked for her address and gave her a special location and a call card. The next morning, while reading the newspaper, Elizabeth came across an advertisement placed by her own company. It was for an interview to find a new model, a replacement for her. The ad sent a wave of despair through her, deepening her depression. Along with the newspaper, Elizabeth found a black envelope. Inside, there was a number written on a slip of paper. This was the secret address she was to visit. Driven by desperation, She followed the instructions, eventually arriving at a hidden room inside a house, a locker room, where she used the number card to gain access. Inside the locker, Elizabeth found a box containing everything she needed to transform herself. The box held a syringe filled with the substance, which was to be used only once, along with a stabilizer kit designed to help her maintain her new body. As Elizabeth had learned from the flash drive, the stabilizer fluid would be extracted from the spine of the old body. The kit also contained special food for both bodies, the young and the old. After returning home, Elizabeth hesitated. She stood in front of the mirror, examining her reflection, unsure whether she should go through with it. After much internal struggle, she finally made her decision. She injected the green fluid into her body. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but soon, a sharp pain coursed through her body. Her eyes bulged, and within moments, her back began to crack open. Then, astonishingly, a younger, more vibrant version of Elizabeth emerged from the old body. The new Elizabeth, her skin smooth and radiant, looked at herself in disbelief. For a long time, she couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The transformation had worked. She was young again. But as the reality set in, a mix of awe and fear filled her heart. She had crossed a line, and now she had to live with the consequences. Elizabeth's transformation into a beautiful, youthful version of herself was so captivating that she couldn't stop staring at her reflection. As she marveled at her new appearance, she realized that she had to tend to the old version of herself, her original body. She carefully detached the substance from the old body's spine and attached a food bag to sustain it, ensuring her former self would stay alive. She spent the entire night reveling in her newfound beauty. But when she woke up the next morning, she noticed something troubling. Her nose was bleeding. Alarmed, she remembered the instructions that came with the activator kit. To maintain her new body, she had to extract the substance from the old body's spine every day and inject it into herself. Without hesitation, Elizabeth did exactly that. After the injection, she felt normal again, and her new body's beauty seemed even more enhanced than before. Determined to take advantage of her youthful appearance, Elizabeth, now using the name So, went to an audition for the show that had replaced her. The moment the director saw her, he was astonished by her transformation and immediately selected her. During the interview, So made up an excuse, claiming that her mother was ill and that she needed to travel to her village weekly to care for her. The director, without question, agreed to the arrangement, giving her the time off she needed for the body-shifting process. So was thrilled to have landed the job, and her new body quickly gained her a massive following. Her billboards and advertisements appeared all over the city, cementing her status as the new star. 6 days passed in this new life, and the 7th day arrived, the day to shift back into her old body. As she activated the old version of herself, Elizabeth felt a sense of unease. She knew that, after the switch, her young body would be left dormant. She returned to her office to film her show, but the director's behavior was cruel, and his mistreatment of her left her feeling humiliated. Returning home in distress, Elizabeth's mood soured even further. The next day, as she read the newspaper, she received an envelope containing a message from the company that provided her with the substance. Inside the envelope was a note saying that her new refill kit had arrived. Elizabeth, now dressed in her court shirt, went to retrieve the kit. But little did she know that the time to activate her new body had come once again. In her newly activated body, So reveled in the pleasures of youth and beauty, making the most of every opportunity. However, the truth of her situation loomed. Her real identity as Elizabeth could be exposed at any time. To cover her tracks, So decided to create a hidden space in her home. She secretly tore down a wall to make room for the old body, which she would now hide away. The noise from her secret work attracted the attention of her neighbors, who grew concerned. When one of them came over to check, So, ever confident in her beauty, casually dismissed them, offering help in case they needed anything. Once the neighbor left, she continued her work undisturbed. The hidden room was now complete, and she carefully stashed away Elizabeth's former self. With this secret in place, So could fully embrace her new life. As her fame grew, So reveled in the luxuries her new body brought her, but the responsibility of body shifting was always in the back of her mind. Today was the day she needed to switch bodies again, but she had become so immersed in her new life that she forgot about the urgent task. Elizabeth's old body was running low on the food supply, and without the shift, her former self would deteriorate. Later that day, she suddenly felt the familiar signs of a shift approaching. Blood flowed from her nose, and a strange sensation spread through her body. It was time to shift again. Instead of shifting her body back, So's greed overtook her. She decided to stay in her new body a little longer, and extracted all the remaining substance from Elizabeth's body, injecting it into herself. The results were immediate. She felt even better than before, but the consequences for Elizabeth's body were yet to be seen. So spent another 7 days in her new body before finally switching back. When she entered Elizabeth's old body, she immediately noticed something alarming. One of her fingers had melted. The damage was a direct result of her carelessness, as she had missed her body-switching cycle. Panicked, Elizabeth immediately called the company for a solution. "I missed my cycle," Elizabeth said. "I didn't switch my body on time, and now one of my fingers is damaged. What can I do to fix this?" The company's response was cold. "There's nothing that can be done now. What's done is done. And remember, you are not two, you are one. Both bodies came from the same original body. You need to be careful from now on." Terrified, Elizabeth received her new refill kit and went to a restaurant. There, she encountered an elderly man who spoke to her in a strange manner. She noticed he had the same mark on his hand that she had seen on a nurse's hand at the hospital. This man was actually the old version of that nurse. He asked her ominously, "Has your new body started eating you?" Frightened, Elizabeth quickly left the restaurant and returned home. She tried to find some comfort in her old body. She called her friend over and got dressed in beautiful clothes, doing her makeup to resemble her new, youthful appearance. However, when she saw So's posters plastered on the streets outside, her confidence shattered. Her makeup became a mess, and her depression intensified. Overcome by sadness, she ate excessively and went to sleep. She had switched bodies earlier that morning and had gone to her show. However, upon arriving at the set, she was shocked to learn that the show would be discontinued. The crew was packing up, and Elizabeth was left feeling hopeless. She rushed to the director, only to find that he had good news. "From now on," he said, "you won't just be hosting a regular show. You'll be the host of the New Year's Eve event." Elated by the promotion, Elizabeth didn't think twice before agreeing to the opportunity, even though it meant she would need to stay in her new body for the New Year's Eve event, right when she was supposed to switch back into her old body. Days passed, and Elizabeth stayed in her new body. To maintain it, she extracted the stabilizer from her old body and injected it into her new form every day. This began to take a toll on Elizabeth's original body, causing it to deteriorate further. After some time, when Elizabeth finally switched back into her old body, she was horrified by its condition. It had aged drastically due to the excessive extraction of the stabilizer. Elizabeth was devastated and filled with hatred for So. In a fit of rage, she destroyed all the photos of So in her home, and even covered the mirrors, no longer able to bear seeing So's face on billboards around the city. Desperate, Elizabeth contacted the company again, asking if there was any way to reverse the damage. "Is there a way to restore my body? Can I get the same body back?" she pleaded. The company's response was unforgiving. "We've already told you, what's done is done. Nothing can be changed. But if you want, you can stop this cycle. You can live the rest of your life in your old body. But that's your choice." Refusing to accept her fate, Elizabeth received a call from So. Without a second thought, she switched back into her new body. For the next 3 months, Elizabeth continued to inject the substance from her old body into herself, prolonging her new life even further. Elizabeth had been enjoying life in Sue's body. But just one night before New Year's Eve, disaster struck. Her serum ran out. That day, she visited a boy's house. But suddenly, she felt a painful sensation, as though her organs were failing. In a panic, she tried to extract more serum from Elizabeth's old body, but to her horror, no serum came out. Worried, Elizabeth called the company for guidance. "What should I do now?" she asked. The company replied, "If the serum isn't coming out, it means you've used up all of it. You'll have to wait for a new batch. In the meantime, you must switch bodies." This news only worsened Elizabeth's condition. Desperate, she began the process of switching her body. Meanwhile, the boy in the other room had been hearing strange noises. Curiosity led him to investigate, and he approached the washroom. Before he could get a good look, Elizabeth quickly locked the door, hiding her horrific form. She was old, bald, and struggling to walk. The sight of herself terrified her. Elizabeth immediately called the company again. "I want to stop all of this," she pleaded. The company responded, "You can take the termination fluid. That will end the process." Elizabeth, seeing the deteriorated state of her body, reluctantly agreed. She hurried to get the termination substance, hoping it would end the nightmare. As she held the vial in her hand, ready to inject it into Sue's body, she remembered the manager's warning. If she used the termination serum, the body she was currently in would become permanent. Panic set in. Her body in the mirror looked like a shadow of the person she once was. Her anger flared, and she once again blamed Sue for everything. Elizabeth's greed had led her to this point. She had injected half of the serum into Sue, but instead of completing the process, her ambition took over. She remembered she had a big show to host soon, and the prestigious award she was due to receive. She wanted to feel the praise of others again, just like in the past. Consumed by this desire, she didn't inject the full serum. With the incomplete transformation, she tried desperately to revive Sue. But Sue didn't wake up. Growing more frustrated, Elizabeth attempted to switch their bodies, but the body swap failed. Panicked, Elizabeth removed the activator from her spine and placed it on Sue. Finally, Sue activated. But when Sue realized Elizabeth's intention to terminate her, she exploded in rage. In a fierce fit of anger, Sue attacked Elizabeth so violently that Elizabeth's head was crushed, leading to her death. After killing Elizabeth, Sue was overcome with guilt, realizing the gravity of her actions. Worse, without Elizabeth's activator substance, she was now in a desperate situation. Despite this, Sue went ahead with her plans, continuing to prepare for her New Year's program. The crowd greeted her with enthusiasm, and for a moment, Sue felt elated. But soon, something strange began to happen. Blood started to pour from her nose, and panic set in. She rushed to the washroom, only to have 2 of her teeth fall out as she opened her mouth. Terrified, she realized that because of Elizabeth's death, her body was deteriorating rapidly. To survive, she needed to apply the activation serum. She rushed home, but on her way, she lost a nail and an ear in the elevator. In sheer panic, she pretended nothing was wrong when someone else entered the lift. Once home, Sue tried to apply the activation serum, but nothing happened. Desperate, she remembered the 2 substances she had stored. Substances meant for a single use. Without hesitation, she injected them into herself. The pain was unbearable, and her body tore apart at the waist. From within, a grotesque hybrid of Sue and Elizabeth emerged, a nightmarish creature. Sue's mental state was shattered, but she didn't fully comprehend the horror of her transformation. What was she now? Could she face the world in this monstrous form? Desperate to maintain some semblance of her old identity, she placed a picture of Sue on her hybrid face and went on stage for her show. The moment she reached the microphone, the photo fell from her mouth, revealing her monstrous face. The audience was horrified, calling her a monster. Panicked, Sue fled the stage, but a man wielding a baseball bat struck her face. Her face cracked and fell apart, blood spilling out and spreading across the studio. The crowd fled in terror as Elizabeth's body fell apart in grotesque pieces, crawling like an insect. Beneath it all, Elizabeth's star remained, symbolizing the end of everything. Her face, lying on the floor, stared up at the sky, a twisted smile frozen on her lips as blood poured from her. The next morning, workers cleaned the horrific scene, unaware of the dark history that had unfolded.